Remakes and remasters can be a divisive topic in gaming. Some people feel they've become a bit excessive, and in some instances, we don't disagree. But we're big fans of games being readily available for people to enjoy and experience. And so today, we've got a list of 15 upcoming remakes and remasters that we can't wait to play. What's up, everyone? This is VBerg. Welcome to Game Conclave, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like and subscribe. Tell us if you're looking forward to any of these games down in the comments. And let's hop into this list of remakes and remasters that we're dying to play. Alright, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is the full-blown remake to the third Metal Gear Solid game. This is considered by many to be the pinnacle of the series and the pinnacle of stealth action games, and one of the best games ever made. It's also a really interesting one to be the first game remade, as it's the first game in the series chronologically. So I think there's a lot of speculation that based on how well this one does, we might be seeing full-blown remakes of the rest of the series, which would be pretty freaking awesome. So, I mean, if they're handled with the level of care it looks like, you know, we're going to be getting based on what we've seen from all the trailers, this looks like a really faithful remake of an amazing game. The series is known for delving into all sorts of political themes and questioning the ethics of science and all sorts of philosophical issues. It's a widely beloved series for a reason. It's just something weird and unique and contemplative in the world of gaming. It's a love letter to John Carpenter films mashed up with a stealth action game and a high-stakes espionage setting. If you've never dived into the weirdness that is the Metal Gear Solid series, this is going to be a great launching point when it drops on the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC on August 28th of this year. Suikoden I and II HD Remaster, Gate-Rune and Dunan Unification War is a monstrously long title. Which is kind of hilarious because the Suikoden games are very brisk turn-based RPGs. You can finish them in about 30 to 40 hours, so big long name for pretty short RPGs. But yeah, don't let that description fool you though. These games are dense with world building, lore, and massive options for party customization. Let's rewind, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Suikoden I and II came out back in 1996 and 1999 stateside. The Suikoden series is a pretty unique RPG. It's based on a concept that comes from a Chinese play, and it's incorporated into the game's mechanics. So just like in the play, the main character in the Suikoden series recruits 108 characters to join them in a destined encounter to bring justice to a war-torn land. And the backdrop of this framework is a politically tinged story about the nature of humankind and how it relates to war and strife. You know, what happens to a land and its people when its rulers are detached by hubris or blinded by grief? What if nuclear weapons were small runes that could be inscribed into a person's hand or forehead? What do we do once we've lost those most important to us? Those are the kinds of questions this series will ask you to think about as you're running around recruiting your allies from all walks of life, be they a chef, a bartender, a bandit warlord, a vagabond, or a fisherman. You know, and what happens when normal, everyday people find a champion to believe in? You know, will you live up to those aspirations, or will you make poor decisions that can cause the death of those around you? Combine all those ideas with a 6-person turn-based battle system, one-on-one duels, strategy battles, and a plethora of minigames, and you've got the essence of Suikoden. For those who've already played this, this will undoubtedly feel like a fever dream come true to see these two classic titles resurrected. Some hail Suikoden II as one of the best RPGs ever made, and claim that it's on par with, though overshadowed by the Final Fantasies of its era. You know, and for those who've played the new Eiyuden series, the spiritual successor to Suikoden, this is an opportunity to see where it all started. And for me personally, this is an opportunity to dive into one of my favorite series of all time with a fresh coat of paint, and get the opportunity to play them with my wife, who's never played them, and will probably be happier than hell that I might finally shut the hell up about these games when they drop on March 6th for the Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC. Alright, the Days Gone remaster for the PS5 was just announced at the State of Play. And I think the fandom would have been more excited about a sequel, but we'll take what we can get around here. The game already looked very good, and like some people have been criticizing, the visual tweaks kind of need like a magnifying glass to be spotted. But hey, like I said, we'll take what we can get. It's another opportunity to play as Deke, larger hordes of freakers to kill and run from. Some fun new modes have been added in. Permadeath, speed run, horde assault mode, and at the very least, this will give folks who've never played the original an opportunity to play it with some new bells and whistles. So we're not going to complain too much, other than to say Sony's new strategy of remastering games that are barely 5 years old feels kind of odd. But hey, at least it's not as egregious as whatever the heck's going on with Naughty Dog.
Bring it!
Dragon Quest I and II HD 2D Remake is an upcoming remake of the first two Dragon Quest games, a very long-running and widely beloved turn-based RPG series. These original two games came out in 1986 and 1987. Pretty old. The series was known for three prominent influences that have run throughout every game in the series thus far. And that's that the game is designed and written by Yuji Horii, the music is composed by Koichi Sugiyama, and the characters and monsters were designed by Akira Toriyama. Now, sadly, two of those three men have passed on, but their work will not be forgotten. A whole new generation is going to have the opportunity to experience these classic titles where these three men started together. And we don't have an exact release date on this title yet, but we can surmise quite a bit about it. As it's a remake of the first two games, it's going to be a fantasy RPG. We know thematically it's going to be a bright, whimsical world, like it's straight out of a folktale. It's most likely going to look very similar, if not essentially identical, to the Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake you're seeing here. And that launched late last year. Now, you might be wondering, why in the heck did the third game get remade already and not the first two? Well, that's because they're releasing these remakes in chronological story order. Now, you don't need to have played any of them to fully know what's going on in each specific title, so don't worried about that. It's just one of those series where there's lots of little Easter eggs and references that'll just kind of bring a smile to your face if you played them in order and kind of get all the little details like that. Unlike the third remake, we presume this one's going to be hitting pretty much everything, the Xbox Series X and S, the PS5, Switch, and PC whenever it does drop, which is supposed to be sometime this year. Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2 are being remade by a collaboration between Remedy Entertainment, the creators of the first two games, and Rockstar Games, who they sold the Max Payne property to many years ago and made the third game in the series. The Max Payne games were absolutely awesome third-person shooters. When they came out, they had this dark and gritty noir style you didn't really see much of at the time. Comic book story panels and voiceover narration. It was also one of the first games to feature bullet time mechanics. The first game's story centers around Max infiltrating a crime family that traffics a new designer drug. And the second game deals with the fallout of Max's actions in the first game, now that he's back on the force and no longer working undercover. There's all sorts of hard-boiled action, femme fatales, and wild twists and turns to the story in these two games. We know next to nothing about what this remake will look like, but YouTube is flooded with dozens of fake AI-generated trailers. We do know that Rockstar is financing the remakes, and they've stated that the budget is within the normal scope of a Remedy AAA game, and that it's being developed with Remedy's proprietary Northlight game engine. So this means that we can probably expect it to look pretty similar to Control or Alan Wake 2 in terms of visuals. We also know that their target platforms are the Xbox Series X and S, the PS5 and PC, and they've stated the game is coming along steadily in full production. So it is possible we're going to see this drop this year. I'm thinking it's not as likely on this title as some others on the list, but we'll just wait and see.
The feeling hit me like a point-blank shot straight in the face. Something was not right about this.
Yooka-Replaylee is an upcoming remaster of the bright and fun 3D open world platformer from 2017, made by Playtonic. This is made by some of the key people who created the Banjo-Kazooie series and the Donkey Kong Country games. You play as Yooka the Lizard and Laylee the Bat as they try to stop Capital B from absorbing all the world's books. And, you'll use their special powers to solve puzzles and collect all the magic pages from their book as this goofy little duo. The remaster will feature new art and updated animations, higher resolutions, and smoother performance over the original. There's more challenges to unlock, optional waypoint markers that added in, more things to buy, new collectibles, and an arranged orchestral score of the original soundtrack, as well as some camera and control tweaks. The game's been confirmed for the Xbox Series X and S, the PS5, and PC, but as for Nintendo, they when they released their info about release, they clarified that it would be released on a Nintendo platform, but didn't mention the Switch. So, there's a lot of speculation that means this is going to be a Switch 2 title. Maybe even a launch title. Who knows? We can't wait to find out, though. The Gothic I Remake is a remake of Piranha Bytes' 2001 game, Gothic, which is a landmark title in open-world RPGs. Gothic is known for its dedication to player freedom and decision-making. The original game is just renowned for feeling realistic and grounded within a fantasy framework. In it, you play as a prisoner who's thrown into the Valley of Mines, where criminals are forced to mine ore for humanity's war against the orcs. And prisoners are contained by a magical field known as the Barrier. Upon entering, your character will discover that the prison has divided itself up into 3 competing factions. The old camp, who continue to mine and trade ore to the king, the new camp, who believes the ore can be exploited to gain their freedom, and a newly formed religious sect known as the Brotherhood. Gothic's immersion and atmosphere were just top tier. There were so many different ways to interact with the world and characters, and it wasn't filled with quest markers, just a sense of really organic player discovery. The remake's being handled by Alchemia Interactive, who stated that their goal is to retain the charm and expectations of the Gothic franchise in a way that modern players expect. And, I really hope they deliver on this one. This was supposed to come out back in 2024, but we still don't have a confirmed release date. So presumably it will be releasing sometime this year for the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is an action-adventure platformer that released way back in 2003 to tons and tons of critical acclaim. You play as a young, unnamed prince who is tricked by his father's vizier into unleashing the Sands of Time, which ends up transforming an allied kingdom into a land of monsters. And the young prince must save the people with the assistance of a young princess. He does this through the Dagger of Time that he's acquired, which allows him to rewind time. And this plot point is actually woven into the game's mechanics in a really cool way. So the prince can use the dagger to freeze enemies or rewind time and negate mistakes that you as the player made while platforming. The game's a really fun blend of hack and slash action combat and platforming. You had to deal with traps and monsters and platforming challenges and puzzles, and it was just a very well-made series. It went on to spawn several sequels, and it even created a spin-off title that eventually morphed into its own thing that we now know as the Assassin's Creed series. So, yeah. So what do we know about the Sands of Time remake thus far? Well, not much at the moment. We know it's being developed by Ubisoft Montreal, who's made most of the Prince of Persia games and most of the Assassin's Creed games. They've stated that their goal is to modernize controls and the camera to be in line with what modern players expect, and they have stated the game is in full production.
Don't let go!
Front Mission 3 Remake is the upcoming remake of the third Front Mission game. This originally came out in 2000 in the States and was actually the first entry we ever received in the series. It's a strategy RPG set in the near-distant future. The world is as plagued and embroiled in chaos and turmoil as it is right now. So, in the game, you play as a Vonzer test pilot named Kazuki. And one day while making a delivery of mechs, which is what Vonzers are, that's their name for mechs or mobile suits. But one day Kazuki is making a delivery to a military base. He and his fellow pilot Ryogo witness an explosion. And then later on in the day, when they're drinking beers at the bar, they notice that the military covers it up. Later on, Kazuki then realizes that his sister has begun working as a research scientist on the very base he witnessed the explosion in, and he decides to break in and discover what's going on with her. This will get the two pilots embroiled in an international conspiracy that hops between several nations as they recruit members of their squad to try and uncover the truth. The turn-based battles play out in mechs that you can customize based on how you want to build each pilot. There's even a hilarious mini-game of surfing the web, or at least what people back in the year 2000 imagined the internet would look like 100 years down the line. And it hasn't aged all that well. Front Mission 3 is known for its branching story paths. There's two main scenarios with dozens of sub-branches within each main path. The techno-thriller storylines in this series are really good. They're very Tom Clancy-esque, you know. We don't know when this one's going to be released yet, but it's safe to assume that like the remake of the first and second game, it'll be dropping on the Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC when it does drop, which we presume is going to be sometime this year, because just last year there was a playable demo that they previewed at the Tokyo Game Show.
Положимся на них, на наших детей.
Trails in the Sky First Chapter is a remake of the very first Trails game, which is a sub-series of the Legend of Heroes series. They're made by Nihon Falcom, known for the Ys series. Trails in the Sky came out in the States originally in 2011, but it was released in Japan back in 2006. The story in this will follow Estelle and her adopted brother Joshua as they train to become bracers, which are kind of like something like UN peacekeepers. But they also do investigations. Anyway, it's like that in a science fantasy setting. Throughout the course of their journey, they'll get caught up in a conspiracy threatening the kingdom of Liberl. The game will retain a turn-based combat system like the original, but it's going to have some of the new additions to the combat system that the newer entries in the series have fleshed out. The series is also well known for its attention to detail. NPCs will often react to story events at various points throughout the game. The storylines are filled to the brim with political intrigue, great characterization, and wild plot twists. The series also has an overarching narrative, and we've said this before on this channel, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's like the MCU of Japanese RPGs. You know, every arc is its own standalone trilogy, such as the Sky trilogy, which this is the first entry in. But the events that happen will be acknowledged and referenced, and even have sometimes profound impacts on games down the line, which are part of a different story arc. It's a really great series. We're excited that people are finally going to be able to hop in from the very beginning again, because the original three games are only on PC and Vita. But now sometime this fall, if you've got a PS5, Switch, or PC, you'll be able to finally start the crazy train ride that is the Trails series. The Witcher I Remake is, of course, a remake of the very first Witcher game, which was pretty much unknown back when it launched. Of course, I guess it's unknown. It had just launched. What I'm trying to say is, it didn't make waves back when The Witcher launched. And it took a while to gain traction. Obviously, it blew up on the third one. But yeah, the remake is going to be an open world title. It's gonna ditch the original's more linear zoned experience. We know it's going to be a ground up remake of the 2007 original, and it's being made in Unreal Engine 5 by Fool's Theory, who released last year's underrated title, The Thaumaturge. And the project is being overseen by CDPR. Now, Fool's Theory has stated that their goal is to take the original game, highlight the parts that are great, and take the parts out that are, outright bad or outdated, and just, remove those aspects of the game. What that means exactly, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure if anyone knows. A lot of people are guessing, though, that, the sexy time cards from, Geralt's trysts aren't going to be making it back in. But probably also the combat will be probably seeing some massive overhaul. It was pretty janky, so yeah. We don't have any official release info yet. We're going to guess this is going to be next-gen only title. So probably the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC, we presume. We just don't know if we're going to be seeing anything more about this one this year, but we really hope to. Lunar I and II Remastered is an upcoming remaster of the beloved and very, very expensive to acquire first two Lunar games. Lunar is a turn-based RPG series developed by Game Arts, also known for the Grandia series, which still has some of the best turn-based combat to this day. But yeah, the first two Lunar games were released in 1992 and 1994 and have not been available to play on any new consoles or PC for the last 25 years. In the first game, you play as a young man named Alex who's training to be a dragon master to protect his world from a mysterious magical emperor. And in the second game, you play as Hero, who is seeking out, along with his friends, the help of a goddess after their world is threatened. None of us here have ever gotten a chance to play this series. These games are very rare and very expensive. Sometimes the discs can go alone for $200 in shops. So we're happy there's going to finally be a nice, cheap alternative to experience these classic titles with updated visuals and quality of life features. It's going to be dropping on the Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC on April 18th.
Mega Magic Flame!
Splinter Cell Remake is yet another Ubisoft remake of one of their classic titles. Splinter Cell was a stealth action title that came out back in 2002 and is part of the Tom Clancy licensed Ubisoft series. Now, if you're not familiar with, or always just wondered why some Ubisoft games feature the Tom Clancy name, he was an author who wrote dozens of books, mostly techno-thrillers, spy fiction, military and crime fiction novels. And many of them have been adapted into movies, like The Hunt for Red October and Patriot games, and dozens and dozens and dozens of games now. So, in Splinter Cell, you get to play as Sam Fisher, who's investigating the disappearance of two CIA officers in Georgia, the country, not the state. The game was known for its stealth gameplay that took heavily into effect the lighting around you. That was a very important aspect of the game. And you could use your night vision goggles or thermal vision to navigate around and neutralize enemies. So what do we know about this remake? Kind of like the other Ubisoft game on the list, not so much on this one. We know it's in development. We know it's being made by Ubisoft Toronto. Their last major title was Far Cry 6. I think it's safe to say, knowing Ubisoft's penchant for top-tier visuals, we can expect it's going to be on the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, PC. We're probably not going to see a Switch release on this one. And given that it's been 4 years since their last title released, and they've mainly been doing support work for other studios since then, it's really not outside the realm of possibility that we see this stealth series revived later this year.
Sam Fisher. I can't believe you beat me here.
Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition takes the poor neglected original game and frees it from the very, very, very dead Wii U prison. Most of its great games have already been brought to the Switch, but for some reason Xenoblade Chronicles X was ignored until now, which we're grateful for. Xenoblade Chronicles X is the second entry in the Xenoblade series, but it's not Xenoblade 2, and it's the seventh entry in the third iteration of the Xeno series, of which Xenogears and Xenosaga are a part of. If you're not confused by that, you're probably much smarter than me. The Xeno games are known for delving deep into Jungian psychology, themes of Gnosticism. In Xenoblade Chronicles X, you play as a custom character who's a member of Blade in the year 2054. and humanity has found themselves caught up in between an interstellar war between these two warring alien species. And they decide to build interstellar arcs to flee the impending destruction of our homeworld, Earth. You'll board the White Whale, which will later find itself under attack and ends up crashing on the planet Mira. You're awoken by Elma and tasked with helping her find the scattered life pods that have been dropped all over the planet and helping to rebuild humanity's new home. And from there, you're thrust into a massive, gigantic open-world RPG where you'll fight various threats both on foot and in your giant mechs while you uncover the mysteries of your new home. This remake will feature enhanced visuals, new story elements which are believed to tie it more solidly into the other games in the Xeno series, and it's going to be a Switch exclusive that will be dropping on March 20th. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake is a super anticipated remake, at least to us. Now, if you're not familiar with it, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 1 was a landmark title in RPGs back in 2003 when it came out. This, along with Halo, the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, and Fable, were some of the absolute must-play titles that had released on the original Xbox. It took BioWare's formula for Dungeons and Dragons-inspired gameplay with classes to choose from, character building, party forming, dialogue decisions, and phenomenal storytelling in a great RPG, and thrust it into a more cinematic presentation than they'd done before in a Star Wars setting that took place thousands of years before the movies, giving them tons of creative freedom to do whatever they wanted, unlike some of the new movies. It's to this day, it's still probably one of the best licensed video games of all time, I think. We even have this game to thank in part for the Mass Effect series, you know. So what's going on with this one? Well, we know, like the original game, you'll be playing this custom-created character caught up in a galactic civil war. Your ship is ambushed, you'll bail onto a hostile planet with your companion Karth, and you'll set out to search for the Jedi Bastila, who is your squadron commander, and try to get off this Sith-controlled planet and back to safety. And we know it's going to be a timed exclusive to the PS5, and that it's being developed by Saber Interactive, which, while they just released the fantastic Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, they have like 6 other games in development, and I don't think they have a lot of experience developing RPGs. So I don't know if this is something that we should be worried about or not. I'm always for giving studios a chance to branch out. Sometimes when a studio does something different and then branches out of their specialty, they often make amazing games in a new genre by bringing a different set of eyes to that genre, and it can have really, really profound impact on the development. So the only thing I'd worry here is that maybe they focus too much on the action, and focus on the combat maybe a little too much and not as much on the role-playing and, dialogue decisions, and so they'll end up falling by the wayside, or maybe they're just going to keep the story so in line with the original they don't really even need to worry about that, and just use the same quest and story outcomes. I'd be fine with that. We really don't know much, except that this has been pushed back several times now. We'd love to see some updates on it, or it released this year, but I feel like considering they just announced a new Turok game, it might be unrealistic to hope for this one to come out this year. So which of these remakes or remasters are your most anticipated? Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, from all of us here at Game Conclave, thank you so much for watching.